try and distill through real-world best practices for lasting impact, including sharing our own struggles, right? So it's not all rosy and shiny. But perhaps let's know who are the gentlemen seated at the stage. I was just telling someone there, my role actually here is just to click to the next slides. And so I'm faithfully doing that. This is a panel session and it's a hybrid of sorts. As I'd mentioned, we're joined by three gentlemen. I think I'll start from the far right. That's Carlos. Carlos Samei is a data scientist. He's really experienced in building data and AI tools to support mail systems. Hi, Carlos. And then in the middle is Anushil. Anushil is a senior manager with Catholic Relief Services in digital programming. And with 15 years of experience, he's been involved in developing softwares and solutions that address complex problems. And last but not least, we have Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan. Jonathan is with Iona Insights with over 8-year experience, right? Building large-scale M&E systems for international development using open source architectures. And of course, the guy with the mic, my name is Paul. They allowed me to put my face up there. I'm an ICT for Meal technical advisor with Catholic Relief Services. What that means is that I sit between the technology and the programming. So I'm business lead, and I've also been involved in M&E of programs. All right. So let's get into it. And I'm really struggling with this pointer. I'm not so sure where I need to point. But I'll start by posing a question to the panelists. And maybe I can start with you, Anushil. What is the problem that you faced in Catholic Relief Services, and what is the proposed solution?
Perfect. So let me begin with a lighter note by saying that every problem has a solution. And in due course of time, that problem becomes a solution itself. So we then move on in finding new solutions. So this is a never-ending cycle that makes us HI. I'm not talking about AI that has been a buzzword. I'm talking about us being humanly intelligent. And I'll talk more about it, why I'm leaning towards that. But now coming to the problem. So the problem that we're trying to solve here is simple, but it's critical. In humanitarian settings, community voices disappear. People raise concerns, they raise complaints, and the program teams continue to operate without knowing whether they're meeting their own objectives or even upholding human dignity. So the problem here is threefold. There is no structured loop between community voices and the program response. There is no accountability whatsoever as to who recorded the feedback, who acted upon it, and when. And then finally, there is no scalability, given the fact that ad hoc solutions crumble upon the complexities of multi-country, multi-region settings. Right? So at CRS, digital FCRM fixes it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the digital FCRM is not just a technology. It's a technological solution that encompasses security, sustainability, scalability, and flexibility. And we also have an operating model that ties people, process, and tech in such a way that every piece of feedback, whether it is coming from a remote setting or from an urban program, is captured, tracked, resolved, and documented. This solution also very effectively handles sensitive feedback like safeguarding and financial fraud in alignment with the agency policy, right? So what's unique about this? We are not just selling softwares. We are bringing the framework along, the governance, the workflows, and the know-how of operating in similar situations over 100 countries in the last 80 years. So the feedback loop actually closes, communities are heard, teams act upon, and accountability is proven. That's the value add, converting community voices from passive data to active drivers of better humanitarian outcome with security, sustainability, accountability, and flexibility. I'll talk more about the USP in a bit, but in the meanwhile, I will pass on to my co-panelist Carlos to talk about the problem and the solution that he has designed to solve.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anushil. So one of the most common questions that citizens ask, and I'm sure it's a problem not only in Kenya, but all over the world is, does the government actually listen to us when they're drafting the budgets? And I think this is an area of interest, especially in Kenya, where we have community organization as well as volunteers that actually work really hard to make sure that the budget documents drafted by the government reach the citizens, and then the feedback that the citizens send to the government actually reach them as well. And to do that through public participation. And as you can see on the screen, that's the whole process of public participation, especially in Kenya. And you can see this is quite a lengthy process. And at many of these steps, we have quite a few pain points, and I'm going to list a few of them. So the first one is that the budget documents actually not that easy to access for many reasons. Sometimes the government don't send them on time. Sometimes the people working on the ground actually don't have access to them. The second one being that there isn't any unified guideline to how we collect the feedback from the citizens. So we have the volunteers at the grassroots that do the best to go and get that feedback. But depending on many challenges, there's no unified way to get that data. And the third one is that when these volunteers in charge of analyzing the data and then sending to the government uh, end up with all the data from all these different places, it's just a lot of data, and they don't have any good way to analyze that data and send it to the government. And one thing that all these pain points have in common is that a worst case scenario, crucial feedback from the citizens can be lost. And that is why we built a platform called Bajeti Ufahamu, which is a data and AI powered platform to basically collect all that data in a unified way and empower the volunteers to basically draft the documents they need to send to the governments, making sure that they have all the data they need, and they also have better ways to analyze that data to make sure that those crucial feedback do reach the government. So these platform that we built have two main components. The first one is a WhatsApp chatbot to allow easy collection of the feedback from the citizens all the way to a grassroots level, because you just need WhatsApp and your phone. And we also have a web app where you can just track this whole workflow and also unify the feedback in a single platform. And we have what we call AI-powered insights that support the volunteers in drafting the documents, summarizing the feedback, and then sending that to the government. I'll talk about all of this later, but I'll stop there and pass it to my colleague, Jonathan, so he can tell us more about what he built and what was the problem.
Thank you, Carlos. I think from where I am and what my co-panelists have said is we have three main actors. We have the community, we have people interact with the data, and also the systems that the data comes in through. And for our solution, we are breaking down these two problems. We are breaking the problems into two parts, data fragmentation, and that's what also Carlos has mentioned, data coming from WhatsApp, data coming from other structured formats like forms, Excel file, API systems. And then also now when the data comes into the system, what do you do with it? So being able to process this feedback and give actionable insights or maybe feedback to the community, we get some of the systems are becoming inefficient in addressing this. So for the data fragmentation, what we've done is we've created a multi-intake channel process where we get data from different systems, different formats. Through customizable workflows, we put it in a pipeline that is going now to put that data in our standard format that can be used for case resolution. And then also now that we've been able to bring this data together, we have the other issue of data governance, who gets to access it. So for our system, we've deployed role-based access controls that make sure that the data reaches the right person. For most of the feedback we get, we have sensitive cases, things to do with PSCAs, child protection. So this is not information we want everyone to access, even though it's in the central database. So again, we've been able to come up with that data governance and the role-based access that drills down all the way to a field level. So you can be able to see feedback, but specific fields are hidden, PII masking, that kind of information. So now we go into now solving the inefficient CFM. How do we close the loop? The data is there. How do we make sure that we have the right people looking at the data, getting the feedback, and also resolving the cases? On these, we have, again, the customizable workflows. So most of the things I'll be talking about to our system is flexibility and customization, because that's what we really build on. So these workflows help with the taxonomy or the classification of the cases. So people in the field or community members will raise a case, but they won't know which category or which cluster it would be related to. So now our workflows help in the taxonomy categorization, and then also getting the right referral persons, because a feedback from or related to education needs to go to an education focal person, same as nutrition. So again, also these workflows help us now do that pipeline where the data will come into the system, get the right taxonomy, and also push it into the right focal person. And then when it gets to the focal person, we have notifications, because we just send data or a case to someone and we don't tell them. So they need to know. So we also have custom notifications that are sent out to these focal persons. Then they can go in, click, and based on the access they have, they are able now to resolve the cases and see the fields. What we also noticed is sometimes things fall through the cracks. So then a case has been forwarded to a focal person, but they find themselves like they didn't act on it. So some cases that are more sensitive, depending on the deployment or the project, get maybe resolved within an hour, 24 hours, or 12 hours. So we have SLA reminders that will keep reminding the person that if the case is still open, that you need to work on this case. And now that we've been able to put all that together, we're able to close the loop. There's some information or insights that maybe the stakeholders will need to be able to plan interventions based on the feedback they are getting. So within the system, we also have a reporting module called Insights that we can be able now to show what's really happening within the system, the activity, and also the kind of feedback that we have. On to the next slide. So yeah, as you can see on the screen, so we have the UML diagram or the structure of how our system is. We have the different intake channels ranging from WhatsApp, or forms that can be filled via phone, API sources from other systems, Excel files that you can import into the system. They come into the integrated channel component, and we use an open source tool called Airbyte to be able to transfer that data. And then the brain of the system, which we call Case Fusion, comes on top of all these. And this is where now the different actors are able to integrate with the system. And then we move into the reporting or the insights. And also something to mention that not only do we have the reporting within the system, we are able to push data to other BI tools through API and any other custom connections that we create. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And quite some insights and catchy words there. Anushil, I had you introduce the word human intelligence. You know, like I said, AI is what we are checking from this ICT4D conference. So you came up with human intelligence, and that's an interesting term. You also mentioned that the solution is just not about tech, you know, but also people and processes. Why is that important?
Thank you, Paul. Very well framed question, and it's really important. So the term HI I coined after the first day of conference, where I have been going across a lot of AI buzz. So the underlying point I'm trying to make, colleagues here, is technology is is not the end, it's just the means. And technology alone cannot deliver accountability. There is no technology in the world that can deliver you accountability. The key piece of the puzzle is people, is human. And people are the fulcrum that kind of, make the right balance on tech and process to deliver the accountability that the program and participant deserve. So that's the underlying thing that I wanted to outline, that nobody can replace humans, and tech is just a smaller piece. So,
Well said. Thank you. I, I'll let you, I'll come to you guys in a few if you have questions concerning their solution or the problem definition. But I just had, maybe let me go to you, Carlos. You know, of the three solutions, you highlighted the use of AI, and you work in a public space with citizens who could easily be at risk. What safeguards have you put in place to make sure as you use AI, those using the system are not at risk?
Thank you, Paul. So as Anushil just said, technology cannot be accountable, but humans are. AI can fail. So we made sure that the AI and the generated insight that we produce are just there to facilitate the analysis, and the AI doesn't take the driver's seat. So to do that, we just generate insights such as summaries, maybe topics related to the different feedbacks, but we don't actually generate any outputs that can actually be sent to the government directly, just to make sure that the volunteers actually at every step of the process still maintain the driver's seat, and they can do the analysis based on their experience and produce an output that's to the standards of the work that they've done. The second thing is just also for accountability purposes, we make sure that every insight we generate also can be tracked to feedback that has been sent verbatim by the citizens, just to make sure that then if it fails, if there's any safety issue, it can be tracked, and then only safe insight actually make it to the document that's sent to the government.
I see. So again, people being an important component, but also always having a plan B, right? What I can get.
Exactly.
How about you, Jonathan? You really used some fancy words. I had workflows, I had SLAs, and these are tech-heavy terms. And I know most of the colleagues in the room are actually tech people, so maybe it's only me. But specifically, if you could give us a specific example of how this has been applied and what benefits you see from that.
Thanks, Paul. Trying to find the right word. So, but the specific example is assuming you want to give feedback of a program you've been enrolled in as a beneficiary. So chances are you either call in a hotline number, send a message, or maybe go to a customer care support desk where you go and fill in your feedback. And then that feedback needs to be put into a system so that someone can be able to act on it from maybe the relevant person. So what our workflows does is, that's, I think everyone has said about human intelligence and everything. So when the humans, we do the part of registering the feedback, so the system takes it up. It will look at what you've been able to capture, assign the right taxonomy, as I have said, so, and then it is going out to push that to the right focal person. And then the benefit of this is it has reduced visibility of feedback from the community, because before you fill in a form and you move it from a place like Kisumu in Kenya and to Nairobi, it might take 2 or 3 days. But when it's within the system and the workflows, then it's like not real time, but near real time. It will be instant as it moves across. For the SLAs, so these are timeframes that are set within which a case needs to be resolved. So as I had mentioned earlier about things falling through the cracks, so what happens is once you keep reminding people that this case needs to be worked on, they work on it. And from the deployments we've done and the feedback we've received is like, this has tremendously increased the number of cases that have been resolved. Even some of these KPIs that they do reporting on have improved, because you can't say you missed it when you get like 5 notifications within a week. So you still need to work on it. Thank you.
So again, using technology as tools to make us more efficient, right? Right feedback to the right response to the right feedback at the right time. All right. Maybe we can pause and take 2 questions. If we have like 2 rapid questions, and then we're gonna move forward. If you just have a question, I'll try and get the microphone to you. I know I shouldn't leave the stage because we are online, but I'm here.
Thank you very much, and nice presentation. My question has to do with how do you trigger this feedback? Because I see on the chart, I see feedback channels, integrated input channels, right? So how do you get this information into these different channels? That's my first question. Yeah.
Well placed. I have a question for Carlos. I loved the way you talked about like the traceability of your AI insights back to the data. I'd love to know, like, what do your volunteers think? Do they wish that they had a little more free reign to use the AI tools, or do they understand the point that you made about the importance of the traceability and accountability?
Right, thank you. That's a really good question. Actually, it's kind of related to the second point I want to talk about, but before building this, we did take the time to talk to these volunteers and then scope the solution with them. And one of the main feedback is they wanted to keep the agency. They didn't want to feel like maybe, just to simplify it, the AI is replacing them, but they wanted to have the expertise being used, but just getting some support, analyzing the huge amount of data that comes in.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we can split the response to your question between CRS and ONA. So I think you talked about SLAs and workflows and how that's triggered, right? I think the commonality between CRS's digital XCRM and ONA is flexibility, right? How does the flexibility come? I think we have built a middleware. We at CRS use Azure system, whereas ONA is using Cloud Fusion, and Jonathan can speak more about it. What does middleware do? Primarily, it shampoos the data that is coming from the input channel, right? And then pushes it to a feedback system. What does it do finally is that, it doesn't matter if country program is using an IVR system for feedback, or maybe like a complaint boxes, or maybe any other tool. It doesn't matter, right? Once the feedback is in a standard structure, and we have an input channel there, which is ComCare. So people then put the data into the ComCare. The middleware is then like championing the data and pushing it to the feedback system. Now, if the middleware also enables to connect with the input channel directly, what I mean by saying is someone is implementing an IVR and they want to connect that directly to the middleware and the feedback system, that is the flexibility that middleware brings. So it has immense potential to connect to any sort of input channel and still standardize the data to be handled with flexibility. And I'll pass on to Jonathan to talk more about the triggering and other stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I think from what's been displayed on the screen, which I maybe prompted the question around. So data comes in from different sources. So for instance, I'm going to fill in a form. Then within the system, which we've integrated our tools with, you fill in your form, and then Airbyte has some listeners and triggers so that when a new record comes in, it will pick it up and push directly into the brain of the system. So once we get now into the brain of the system, we have event triggers such that when a new record also gets created within that, then the custom workflows run automatically. So we can have cron triggers across all the components, or we can have event-based triggers based on the interactions that are happening within the ecosystem.
Okay, I think we'll come back for more questions if we get time, but not to be deceived, these are three platforms, and we've presented them as one problem, different solutions, and similarities therein. But we want to remind us that your solutions will be deployed based on your specific use case and the context. And so I'd like us to take a few more minutes to go back to the colleagues here and hear a little about what is the unique provision within their systems or solutions and what stands out, so that we can wrap this together and see, what is similar, but also what's different. So maybe let me, Anushil, you're holding the mic. Maybe I'll go back to you and have this run.
Yeah, thank you. Before I go on and talk about this, I really apologize. This slide has not manifested fairly well on the projector, but anyways, I'll talk through it. So we're talking about the unique selling point, and the USP of the CRS Lab CRM system is the operating model, and it has multiple layers. The first section of the model talks about putting people, process, and tech in the right balance. Most of the feedback systems will provide you a platform and will leave you to figure out the rest. We build an operating model because we believe that platform cannot deliver you accountability, right? So with people, we define the engagement strategy. So before anything goes live, we align on communication, we align on training, we align on budget. So we just don't deploy, we onboard. So the community and the staff need to trust the system before they'll use it, right? With process, we define operational strategy. So we are upfront with governance, our RACI framework, our workflow, our hand-holding, and change management. So every feedback has an owner, it has a resolution path and a workflow. So nothing is left to chance. And with technology, we define the solution strategy. So we stage the system, we configure the solution, we plan the data migration, if any. So the system is ready before go live and not after it, right? So whether you are a low capacity emergency program, you can go with the rapid model, or if you are a very complex high capacity country program, you can choose between the flexible and decentralized model. So the operating model scales to fit all scenarios. So CRS can lead, partners can lead, or the responsibility could be shared, right? Now, it doesn't stop at that. Hypercare, change management, and regular support are built into the operating model. So this is a longer term sustainable commitment and just not one time setup, right? So, and that's the USP. Like one model, 5 pillars, built to scale across any context, putting people, process, and tech at the right balance every single time. With that said, I'll pass on to my colleague Paul, who has been instrumental in conceiving this model, to talk more about it and provide his perspective.
Thank you, Anushil. And you blew my cover. I didn't want to declare I was part of this because you'd see the bias. But this basically speaks to, it's not about what the solution can do, but also how it operates. And I know that in particular because this system has, and we call it solution because it's both tech, process, and people, has been deployed to around 40 country programs within CRS, over 200 projects and programs, and close to 20,000 feedback coming through. So it's actually been able to handle a lot. And with that, we've seen benefits. We've seen the system being secure, through the various standard procedures that have been put in place. We've seen the ability of it being scaled. So it accommodates, as you had seen in the operating model, it can be applicable in both emergency and development contexts. We're trying to make it sustainable. So trying to fund it centrally, but also directly through projects. So we identify costs that can be paid directly by projects and those that can be paid centrally as a way to just make sure it's sustainable. And last but not least, you've noticed it's not one tech, but a mix of tech. And so interoperability between those technologies are possible, probably because of middleware, and doesn't matter which one, you can pick any of your choice. And the ability to allow the users to transit between one and the other model. So if they started with a model that requires a rapid deployment, but now their capacity improves, they have the leeway to move to a different one. So that's a little bit about it, but I also want to hear a little bit more about Case Fusion by Honor, what the unique selling point is. Sorry, I meant, yeah, the slide is up and you have the microphone, please.
All right, thank you, Paul. So one question I was expecting, but it wasn't asked, was why do we have to build such a complicated solution? Why can't we just force the volunteers to use Google Map and then put the sheet on Cloud, which already has a connector, right? But I think that's our unique selling point, is the fact that we actually went through many rounds of refinement, working with the people using it to make sure that we build something for them with the users at the center of the design, rather than just having them adapt and then learn something new, hoping that then it will help them improve their workflow. And that's also what applies to the analytics that we built, just to make sure that it just plugs into the workflow rather than just having to adapt to what we built for them. And one other thing is inclusivity. So we built this platform with inclusivity in mind, making sure that not only the voices of the loudest people can be heard, but also the minorities whose voices are already not heard can also rise up and also be included as much in the final output that's sent to the government. So we actually, this platform is at let's say not too mature phase. We have a first version that we piloted a few months ago in 5 counties in Kenya, but it's already showing promising results, with more than 80% of the volunteers that mentioned that in different ways, the work was made easier using Bajeti Ufahamu. So this shows that designing a platform with the users in mind is a key to adoption and trust from the users. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think you've had me mention about flexibility, modular architecture. So our mostly, which is more of our unique selling point, is we don't have a one size fits all kind of solution. And we don't just give you the solution, but we build the solution with you so that it can meet your different project needs. And that's where now we have the different multi-intake channels that we are able to collect data from any source, all the way from structured formats into unstructured formats, where maybe not to ride on the buzz of AI, we have some sort of chatbot that helps you collect unstructured data, and then we transform it into structured data. And then the other thing that we have is on the data governance and access. We've really worked on our data privacy policies. Recently, we got some certification from United Nations International Center for Computing. They did some pen testing on how secure our system is and the data is, and we got a rating of A, which was quite recommendable. And then also making this more modular, we've been able to deploy to different project needs. And also, it reduces the turnaround time. Let's say you want a solution to cover, and I'll give you an example, is for 3 country offices, we've been able to deploy this system for AAP, accountability for affected persons, the complaints. And then for another country office, they requested a similar solution, but for a different need, which was to track cold chain equipment tickets when the cold chain equipment breaks. And they followed the same, I would say, workflow. So we reduced on the turnaround time and also the dev cost. Since we are able also to deploy to these different projects, we have localization. We can have different languages within the solution that is either universal to the system or it can go down to an individual user. So if your preference is English, you can still see the system in English. And at the same time, if Paul's preference is Arabic, he can be able to see the system and the physical components of the system in Arabic. So when we do all these and we do or work with our partners, we do also have a model where we can build the solution together and hand it over to you after extensive training and capacity building so that you can run and redo the backend kind of support. Or we can just provide everything for you. We just run the system for you. You just get the peace of mind to use the system without having to worry or other additional cost. And then most importantly is the capability of our solution to integrate with other tools. So we have projects where the country office has their own tool, but it's not sufficient or doesn't meet all their needs. So our solution comes as an intermediary such that we get data from where their system is collecting. We do the magic within the system, and then we are able to even push back the same data into their system. So we have that interoperability between our different systems.
So flexibility. Okay, that's great. And I'm not sure how much time we have, but I wanted to be sure we go back and get a few questions. As we wait on that, I have two of my own. And so I'll ask, and probably I'll direct this to you, Jonathan. In the midst of this, and maybe colleagues, you can add, what are some of the challenges you face with especially delivering your USPs?
We faced a number, but I think the first one is the partners that we work with have a fixed mind on the kind of solution they want. But we tell them, we try to understand your need before we build the solution. The other piece we have challenges with is where this data sits about security. And we do provide the different options where we can host the service for you. And also you can host it by yourself. So it's more of kind of a deployment thing. Then the other thing is, as I said, the integration with other components. So someone is like, we have a tool that we built 10 years ago. How do you connect it to this? And then you find that there's no API endpoint for us to pull data and stuff, and also how the data comes in. So we do offer that kind of a service where we sit with you to build the solution. Don't want to take up so much time, so I can pass to someone else.
Yeah, maybe. Anushil, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so my stance always have been to kind of, look through the problem. And certainly, when it comes to technological solution, implementing it in itself is challenging. There are a lot of challenges that we have faced. The operating model that we presented today is a product of 3 years of work, I believe, with an experience of onboarding 40 CPs and somewhere around 200 plus programs. But to just cut short, I'll just put two big challenges from my perspective. The first one is change management. It's really, really difficult to help people understand what change is, and even a small change. Like, if you say, I need to just change the label of my feedback form, that may trigger enormous back and downstream changes. And then also there are consortium of people working in the program side. So some of them is responsible for building forms. Some of them are talking responsible for building the workflows. Some of them are responsible for doing the SLAs. So the problem there is that there is less coordination between these teams, and you continue to receive requests or to update the system 20 times in a day. So eventually, that's the reason why we came up with the concept of change management. So before we launched the operating model, that's the first pillar that we had launched and piloted, working fairly well. So the change management is all about helping people know that one change may have a larger impact. and then collaboration and thinking through before making all the changes, and then doing trade-off as to when you make a change, what impact it has. And the other problem, I believe, is again on the technological side. So I'll just keep it at data migration, building upon what Jonathan mentioned.
Yeah, thank you, Anshul. I'm sure you don't have any challenge. I'm sure you don't have any challenge.
Yes, we do. We do have a couple of challenge. I think the first one is, as I mentioned, we really want to focus on inclusivity, but for that, the main challenge is how do we operate in low connectivity environments, right? People still in this environment where there's no connection, no even internet or even network, wants to be able to give feedback, and I think that's been the main challenge: how to design our platform with that in mind. So we've done a couple of things, just like the use of WhatsApp, which is still can work in low connectivity environments, but still is not the ideal way. So I don't think we have answered this yet, but this is already definitely something we actively working on. And the second one is a bit trickier, which is just how to close the loop, right? Sure, we can make sure that we send the feedback to the government, but is there anything we can do to then close that loop, make sure that, okay, we track whether or not that these changes have been reflected on the budget or not? And also, this is an open question, and also something we think a lot, and maybe keeps me up at night sometimes.
Sure. And actually, maybe closing the loop is just not sending feedback to the government, but also the people who raise the feedback, right? So that's a good challenge. And I think that speaks to room for improvement. And I'd like to do something. This is what evangelical preachers do. If you're close to someone, how about just take the next minute or so to think a little bit, what could the three systems do better? If we were to improve, what would you recommend? What are some of the areas you see either all or either system improves? Let's just take a minute or so. Know your neighbor. You can start by saying hi. And you can think one of your own too. And maybe have the microphone ready once we have, yeah, maybe you can donate yours, Carlos. And gentlemen, I'll request that we write them down because these are improvement. Great. Now, not only have you had a chance to speak to your neighbor, you've shared an idea. So let's get some coming in. Let's hear a little bit. Maybe by show of hand, then you can have the microphone come to you. Who wants to go first? I like the consultation going on. Okay, we have. Thank you. So we'll take a round of three, and then we come to them if they have any reaction. Okay. And if time allows, we'll come back for more.
So during our discussion, a few things came up. One, we're not too clear whether it's a self-service or a managed service. That is one. Also, the technicality can also be a bit tricky. So in terms of, I think somebody mentioned that this can be given to another organization to run and all that. But in terms of the ownership and how to run it is not also clear. Whether it is an open source and all that, those parts needs clarity, which is also linked to data protection and all that. So that part was not really clear, which also triggers down to the foundation, that's the cost, which was also a bit silent in this discussion. Thank you.
Who owns the system and what's the cost considerations? All right, let's have one more.
Okay, thank you very much. And this may actually be for you, given the CRS experience around U-Track. I also noticed that on the other flow map, there is a case fusion that serves a similar role for case management. Comparatively, what can we say is a major difference in that case management process, especially that one is more to participants and one is more to making inputs into government processes?
Yeah, some similarity there, right? So what's the difference between the systems? Okay. Do we have one more? Then we can, flow manager, if we can get a sense of how much time we got, that would be helpful. Okay, we'll keep going. Gentlemen, no mention of who owns the system and what are the cost consideration. And across the systems, working with government, public space, working within organizations, what are the similarities and trade-offs? Who should I start with? You can go first.
So I think the question has been generated from the operating model, where we said the underlying statement was CRS can lead, partners can lead, or the responsibility could be shared. Perfect, good question. So please note that at CRS, we maintain a portfolio of 15 different platforms at the enterprise level. What does it mean is we own the governance, we own the hosting, we own the security posture. So that's the right balance to make between flexibility and standardization. How flexible you could be, and at the same time, what's the right standardization that you need to implement? I'll just take one more minute to kind of give you the context that why CRS has that stance. In 2016, we had a cash distribution system running in Nigeria in one of the big programs, and just to give you a sense of the extent of the program, there were 5,000 enumerators who were trained. So just look at the sheer people who are going to collect the data. So obviously training is a part of it. And at the time, a super admin account with generic user ID password was generated, printed out on paper, and shared with folks for training, right? The actual life cycle of that user was to end after training. That did not happen because this is just obvious and fell through cracks. 3 months down the line, when the data collection was happening, someone get the access to the data because the credentials because it was printed, right? And was able to download most of our data, live data, right? And it was a huge effort, a lot of negotiation to kind of get back the data. And that is when we stepped back and said, okay, can we retrospect the way we are managing our platforms at a scale? And that is where we defined a concept called security posture, which is built on 5 pillar areas. And it said, okay, governance and security is our role. And all the program day-to-day activities with the platform is something that the program should worry about. Why is because program teams are more focused on, or their priority is data collection and not governance. So, and just to conclude, if I want to give you a clear analogy around it, so look at the streets, 15 different cars running across, but all stop at a red signal. That is what we do. But still, someone who's driving the car has flexibility to listen to music, have a burger, take a call while it's still driving. So that's the flexibility that I'm talking about. Now coming back to ownership, so we own the system when it is primarily CRS program implementing. If it is a vendor, all the ownership goes to the vendor, to the partner, sorry. We play the advisory role for best practices.
Thank you. Maybe just let me add in from the CRS point of view. If you see up here, this is an architecture of the, we call it DFCRM, Digital Feedback Complaints and Response Mechanism. And how many technologies are here? Starting from the left, that's ComCare, right? It could be Honor, it could be Kobo, it could be data collection. We have Azure, which is a middleware. It could be any middleware, really. Coming down here, we have UTrack. I think it's the one that is largely known for on this system. And then we have, which is basically the feedback management system. And then we have Power BI for reporting and visualization. And lastly, we have Navex, which is dedicated to capturing, safeguarding, and protection-related feedback. What's the point? The point is that as you build your system, step back, understand what's the goal of your organization, what are the applicable policies, what are the applicable ways of working, where do you see connections, and build a system that doesn't only focus on the tech, but also thinks who are the people involved, what capacities do they need to hold, and what processes then we need to follow, especially if we work cross functions. But on the cost, Anushila has responded to that. Maybe let's hear from Honor.
Yeah, so I'll start with the ownership. As Anushila said, like our solution is based on an open source CMS, content management system, that we built on top and converted a CMS into a CRM. So when we do that, when you are a partner, you own the system. We develop or we help you build onto the system. I talked about self-service. Self-service is where we've come up with the solution, build all the pieces for you. Then we install the CMS or the Case Fusion, which is like the central brain of the whole ecosystem, into your infrastructure, and then you can manage that. There are other associated costs like intake channels. If you're using something like WhatsApp integration, you have to manage your WhatsApp subscription. If you do Kobo on any other tool, so those you manage on your own, but the system is within your infrastructure. A managed service is where now we do the hosting for you. So we manage the security, which you've asked, and we have data encryption at rest, where we use AES 256, and also we use TSL, SSL for encryption for data on transit. And then for the other extended services like WhatsApp, Kobo, we also manage that for you. So we give you a subscription model where we tell you for 1 year, this would be the cost. We don't have a per seat kind of costing model, but we have very, I would say, cost-friendly bands where we can say within a band of maybe 1 user to 100 users, you get like 100,000 cases in a year or something, then we can be able to get a better deal. So for the cost, we don't have like a one blanket cost for the system. Maybe I can add to the question on.
Yeah, in a second, so that we get more questions. We are under 5. I wanted to get another round of questions. Then, okay. Is it okay we come to it as we get more questions? Yeah. I just want to hold space for any last burning question that we haven't taken. Yes, back, gentleman in the chat. We can.
Thank you very much. I think I have 2 questions. The first one is, I think when you look at this development space, both humanitarian and development, we are always looking at inclusion. And I think the question then comes for me in terms of how inclusive is the system, especially to children and people with disabilities, and how are we able to get an output from the reporting perspective that we can be able to rate and see what the level of access we have for that. Then the second question, I'm looking at the previous slide that you've presented, and if you were to rate the effectiveness of the system, and I'm basing this from a perspective of what we talked about, the access, especially in low connectivity areas. We normally see most of this information coming in informally, and we have now to think about systems to now translate that to go into the system. So how do you rate the effectiveness of how we transform the offline feedback into getting into our systems? Yeah.
Do our final remarks, because sorry, we can just respond to the question as we do our final remarks, because we are under 2 minutes.
All right, sure. So I think my answer will be not inclusive enough, right? And I don't think, like I said, it's just something we've been thinking a lot about, and it's still a work in progress. But for now, we have taken a few steps, which was, for example, the use of WhatsApp, but we're also working into thinking about ways to make the platform accessible in low and maybe no connectivity in environments. Also, we're trying to think about how can we, for example, use voice as a main to make sure that people with disabilities, at least with visual impair, can still access the platform. And we still think about many of things we can do, but also I'll be really interested and keen to see if you have any ideas. But I think I can also quickly answer your second question, but I don't think you should have time.
I'm not sure we are time. Yeah, thanks.
So I'll just keep it real quick, trying to answer both of your questions. How inclusive is the system, right? No system can be inclusive without people. And that is what this CRS digital FCRM operating model does. You need to ensure that the people, the staff and your participants trust the system, and that is how you can make it inclusive. Coming back to the no connectivity, CRS operates in 100% no connectivity scenario when it comes to data collection of participants. So we use platforms like ComCare, Kobo that enable offline data collection, and then the middleware syncs the data back.
Thank you, Anushil. Yeah, your final words?
Yeah, so around inclusivity, so as Anushila said, I won't repeat all that, but we have ways in which, like, I would give an example of our current implementation is we have child-friendly forms, intake forms that we've built that also include small, I would say, icons or images and also audio to play for the kids, and they can also be able to record voice in response. I'm not sure it's 100%, but it's working. And then for low connectivity areas, as also the CRS system, we use tools that work offline. And also within our Case Fusion, we've enabled it to actually work offline as well. So since we've integrated with an active call center, if internet goes down, they're still able to register the cases and give feedback. Thank you.
Great. That sounds like a good place to wrap up the session. And if you want to hear more either about the organizations or the solutions, feel free. We have the barcodes up there you can scan. But I know Honor Insight have a booth outside, and there's plenty of many CRS colleagues and Honor. You can always reach out to us. But thank you so much. As you've heard, it's not about any technology. It's about people, tech, and processes. AI has its role, but let's remain human, intelligent, right? And as we move, this can work within our organization, but also public space. Thank you so much, and safe travels back to your stations. Have a good one.
Thank you.